talked a lot about just overall, I think most people, most fans believe that this is going to be a much better year than last season. But is this year going to be as good as the 2019 season? Meaning, are we a threat to be able to go back to the Super Bowl? So let's put it into perspective before I give you the floor to answer it. So our 2019 year, we had Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback. Our floor at quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, right? So at the worst, we have Jimmy Garoppolo back as quarterback. Offensive line was a pretty intact offensive line. We had Richburg, we had Staley, we had a pretty good right guard at that, and we also had McGlinchey and Thomas in there as well. We're going to have that same thing intact. Our running backs were really solid. Coleman, Breida, Mostert. We still have Mostert. Now we have Trey Sermon and Mitchell that'll probably be in that role. I would say we have upgrades at receivers with Ayuk. I think Ayuk is better than what Sanders was at that time, even though Sanders played well for us. We got a better version of Debo, I believe. And then whomever wins that third role, I think will play just as good, if not better, than Bourne. Kittle is Kittle. I think we have better corners, a better system, better defense overall. Definitely the defensive line. All-pro Fred Warner, who's now solidified himself as the best middle linebacker in the game. So knowing that, are the 49ers Super Bowl contenders, a threat to win the Super Bowl this year?
They can be. And they have the schedule to do it for sure. Again, I am picking them to win the NFC West. I just don't know, once it gets to playoff time, if they will be the biggest threat out of the NFC West. I think one of the biggest omissions that you left off the table was Buckner. There is no Buckner on this team. And Buckner, we can say what we want, but at that time, before Fred Warner was Fred Warner, Buckner was really the heartbeat of that defense. As he went, this defense went. And that is a big missing piece. There's so many questions with Javon Kinlaw. Now, I do think this defensive line has a lot of depth, a lot like they did in 2019, but I don't think they have an interior player as good and as disruptive as Buckner. And I think that is really where the difference is. Now, I would say the team on paper, top to bottom, should be better, yes. That said, the league has gotten better. The 49ers lost to a 2019 Chiefs team. Essentially, that same team got waxed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who the 49ers are going to have to go through in order to make it to the Super Bowl. Chances are the Buccaneers get the number 1 seed. They have an easier division. They have a very easy schedule, especially for a defending Super Bowl champ. I expect that they get the number 1 seed. Now, if Trey Lance is starting by the time they go to the playoffs, I think that is the X factor, because there is no way that you can game plan for Shanahan at his best scheming that up. And if Trey Lance starts a majority of the season like I expect him to, it will basically be like his second season. They say that your rookie season ends when the playoffs begin, and now you're on to year 2. So he will be better because of it. And on paper, the 49ers definitely have the recipe to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because how do you beat Tom Brady? Well, you get him off his spot. The defensive line can certainly do that. How else do you beat him? You keep him off the field, and you run the heck out of the ball. The 49ers absolutely can do that. So, yes, I think if any team can knock off that Buccaneers team, it's a healthy Niners team with Trey Lance at quarterback. But there is so many questions as far as injuries. There's so many questions as far as, is Lance going to play, or is it going to be Jimmy Garoppolo? And the rest of the league has elevated a little bit. And so that means the 49ers can't just be as good as 2019. They definitely have to be better than they were in 2019 if they want to give themselves any shot. And then once you get there, oh my gosh, the Chiefs are really good. And they've gotten better, which is crazy. That offensive line is going to be hard to deal with Mahomes, with Tyreek Hill. So, yes, are they a threat? Yeah, I would say they're probably one of the 5 teams in the league that can win a Super Bowl. But I think Tampa Bay right now and the Chiefs right now are really kind of in a tier by themselves. And then it's the 49ers and a couple of these other teams that are right there.
And I think you probably agree with me in saying they're in a tier above because they have less question marks.
For sure,
Because we
yes.
just have a lot of potential that we haven't seen on the field quite yet to see if that potential is going to live up to the potential that they actually have.
Yes. Yes.
However, if these guys do play the way that we expect them to play, I think that I don't think there's any team that the 49ers will fear. Because if they get that running game back, there's just they're just a really hard team to stop. Because like you said, you're controlling the game at that point. Whoever is on the other side is going to have an issue, right? And when we look back at why the 49ers lost the Super Bowl against Kansas City, we were up by 10 points, with 10 minutes left in the game. The problem was at that point in that season, we had a dominant running game, but it was only dominant on the outside. We didn't have that inside zone that we could transition to. So the Chiefs realized that with 10 minutes left in the game, kept, basically just piled up the outsides to stop that running game. And then obviously we unfortunately saw what happened, because now all of a sudden we're not controlling the game like we were able to, previously in that game. So I think that has changed, obviously, with Alex Mack there. And, if Aaron Banks or, Brunson are there, we got, a good right guard that could help the inside zone. So we're going to have more options there. And I think both of us agree. If Trey Lance is starting, I am ready to say they are Super Bowl threats, because the added dynamic that adds to the team, I think, is going to make defensive coordinator pull their hair out. Because to have an extra runner there, I could imagine the 49ers running some triple option.
Yeah.
I think that isn't, we could go back to like the Navy, the college game where we have, Debo and Ayuk running reverses with, Mostert and, Sermon. And then obviously you have the threat of Trey Lance. That's crazy. And not to mention, you're worried about the running game. Well, this guy could throw the ball on a rope 40 yards down the field. And, I just think that the offense is going to be much better than it was in 2019. So even if the defense, and you're right, Buckner was a huge loss, but even if the defense isn't as stout as it was in 2019, because we don't have a Buckner, I think that the offense can make up for it with a guy like Trey Lance. Now, if Jimmy Garoppolo is there, I don't know if teams are as scared of the 49ers at that point. But you know what? We have a few more weeks. Obviously, this weekend is going to be big as far as who is going to be that starting quarterback. It's going to be the first time that the whole world gets to see what Trey Lance is capable of, in a preseason game. So if he shows out the way that we know he can, I think it's going to be pretty hard. I think Shanahan's going to be pretty frustrated trying to answer these questions, as far as there's no competition and all that kind of stuff. So, but once again, like Swan Song says, we have a lot of guys nursing injuries. More than any team, I am afraid of team injury, because they devastate us every single year. But if we could beat that team, I think that the sky's the limit as far as how far this team could go.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.